Buckle up, we're starting in a weird place. But I have a point, I promise. Who remembers Rugrats? Yeah, the 90s cartoon with the criminally neglectful parents that weren't quite sure what they were doing all the time. One of the most famous episodes spoke to why a whole generation of kids watched this beloved series. There's an episode where Stu, Tommy's dad, buys him a play place. As is the norm, Tommy jumped in the box. He submerged himself into the box, and surrounded by complete darkness, his imagination went wild. The box ultimately found its way to Chucky and the twins, who all had their adventures as children in the dark. In Victorian England, those children had adventures in the dark as well. Instead of Tommy being a race car driver or Chucky being an astronaut, these kids were sent into the dark to bring back essential supplies to fuel the British capitalist machine. An explosion of the building of factories to keep up with the demands of all of the British colonies forced the demand of coal to rise at the same rate. Coal mining was lucrative, dangerous, and time-consuming. One of the ways you can save time is to cut smaller shafts, but in order to work those, you'll need workers. Enter the children of Britain. So, without further ado, let's take a look inside the horrific life of a child in a Victorian coal mine. The Industrial Revolution conquered much of the world during the Victorian era, and the most important factor in that was the advent of the steam engine. Factories utilizing steam engines sprung up around much of the developed world, and they required an immense amount of manpower and fuel to keep their engines running. What do you think that fuel was? The children of Victorian England must have been bad to receive all this coal. All jokes aside, there was an insatiable need for coal to fuel the fires of industry that produced some horrific child labor practices and some sexist practices. Immorality was commonplace within the deep and dark parts of the world. Beatings were ubiquitous for the women and children who were forced to go to work in the mines. Furthermore, women were often forced to work naked and were frequently exploited. To make the horrific practices even worse, the job was incredibly dangerous by itself. First are the long-term respiratory illnesses associated with being in mine shafts where the lack of breathable air, poisonous gases, and fumes exacted their price on the lungs of the young children. The deep and dangerous shafts had little to no safety equipment or measures. There were plunges straight down deep into the earth with nothing to catch a slipping person from falling to their death. Jane Peacock Watson was one of these coal mining children. She was from West Linton, a small village in Scotland. When she was interviewed at the age of 40, she illuminated the monstrous exploitation and practices. Watson said, "I have wrought in the bowels of the earth 33 years and have been married 23 years and had 9 children. 6 are alive, 3 dead of typhus a few years ago, and I had 2 dead born." They were so from the oppressive work. A vast number of women have dead children. I have always been obliged to work below till forced to go home to bear the child. We return as soon as we are able, never longer than 10 or 12 days, many less if they are needed. It is only horsework and ruins the women. It crushes the haunches, bends their ankles, and makes them old women at 40. Women so soon get weak that they are forced to take the little ones down the mine to relieve them. Even children of 6 years of age do much to relieve the burden. 3 months is a common maternity leave in a modern employment situation. The fact that women were forced to go back into intensive manual labor not even 2 weeks after giving birth is absolutely insane. To make matters worse, they were forced to bring any existing children they had into the mines as well. The exploitation would continue for quite some time, and it would allow wealthy industrialists to collect unprecedented wealth and profits. Wealth and profits of this magnitude had strictly been reserved for nobility and royalty up until this point of the UK's history, and the lack of safety oversight nor financial regulations allowed for a wealth transfer that had previously not been seen. The question now becomes, what jobs would these mine officers force upon the children in their employ? The first and least physically demanding job would have a child sitting alone in complete darkness for hours on end. Their job description was simple enough. They were to sit by the tracks and wait for a rumbling. Once they felt the trademark rumbling, they would open a crudely made door to let the minecarts go by with their payloads. They would then close the door to regulate the airflow of the mine so the workers would not suffocate. The margin for error was razor thin. If they failed to get out of the way of the cart, they would be crushed to death. This isn't exactly a guarantee in complete darkness. If they were to fall asleep and not open the door, the people pulling the cart would crush. Each child could be a door operator or trapper, or one of the children pulling the heavy carts. These two children were called the hurrier and the thruster. The hurrier would be in front. They would pull the cart on all fours with a rope tied to the cart that connected them at the waist or shoulders. The thruster would push the cart from the back to propel it forward through complete darkness, with no way of knowing if something was on the track until the hurrier felt it. By then, it was often too late and the hurrier could easily be run over by the cart. This would often disfigure the child, or in extreme cases, kill them. The exploitation reached a boiling point in 1838. The site was Husker Colliery in Silkstone, South Yorkshire. There was a terrible accident that shined a light on the absolute barbarity of the practice. There was a stream that flooded into the ventilation drift after a series of intense storms in the area. The result was the death of 26 children. 11 girls aged 8 to 16 and 15 boys aged 9 to 12 all lost their lives. In a true situation of pouring salt in the wound, these 26 children died without the advanced warning of seeing what was coming. The incident infuriated Queen Victoria. She pressured her Prime Minister, Lord Melbourne, to launch an inquiry into the working conditions of Britain's mines and factories. Lord Melbourne appointed Anthony Ashley Cooper, aka Lord Ashley, to oversee the investigation. Over the next several years, Lord Ashley found the many secrets of the horrifying practices that were widespread over the United Kingdom. Lord Ashley interviewed former and current mine and factory workers. The mental health effects on the children cannot be properly evaluated, but it would be a fair comparison to solitary confinement. The terrifying reality that many children found themselves in was summed up in one of Lord Ashley's interviews. 8-year-old Sarah Gooder said, "I'm a trapper in the Gobber Pit. It does not tire me, but I have to trap without a light and I'm scared. I go at 4 and sometimes 3:30 in the morning and come out at 5:30 past in the afternoon. I never go to sleep. Sometimes I sing when I have light, but not in the dark. I dare not sing then. I don't like being in the pit. I would like to be at school far better than in the pit." Fast forward to today, the practice has luckily died out and is not as widely used. There are a few examples, like the Democratic Republic of the Congo, that still use the practice to mine cobalt, but in the developed world it is harshly punished and generally not accepted. The terror, danger, and darkness that these children must have felt is not something that can be truly encapsulated, but hopefully we've shed some light on those children that were born in the darkness. What are your thoughts on this horrible practice? Let us know in the comments down below. As always, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos.